touched to have so many friends, family, Gold Country Writers members, clients, sci-fi fans here today. If you will permit me, I would like to, however, read the dedication to the person who this book is meant for. In loving memory of my mom, Carol Inch, who taught me a love of literature and enthusiastically listened to my tales from the Praxis star cluster for hours on end. I miss her every day. Escaping the Dashia, Chapter 1. 8 years after coming to Earth, I sat at the kitchen table in our apartment, pretending to do my schoolwork while actually sneaking in some video game time. My only worry was how to beat the new zombie v vampire game without my mom catching me. If she caught me playing video games instead of researching my history essay, I'd lose my game time for a week. Every time she glanced over, I clicked my laptop screen back to the essay I was working on. As she bustled about the kitchen making dinner, Mom hummed her favorite 80s tune. Though a bit past middle age, she was beautiful. She had huge, soft brown eyes, long raven black hair, high cheekbones, and a brick red tan. Laugh lines made up her only wrinkles. Dad came in and took a whiff of the roast cooking in the crock pot. That smells delicious. He gave Mom a hug and turned to me. I'd switched to the site on the United Nations for research. How's your schoolwork going? He asked, with enough humor in his voice to make me think I'd been caught. The doorbell rang and Dad went to answer it, giving me a wink on his way out. I bowed my head. No more game time for me today. I heard the front door open. A voice of my real father, Colonel Eben Millett, came from the living room. I've come for my daughter. Shock and disbelief gave way to fear. I hadn't heard that voice since being sent into hiding on Earth. Since then, Bill and Tina had become my adopted parents and given me a home, something I'd never really had before. While I was glad to know my father was alive, the fact his return might mean losing the life I had here with the Splendors wasn't lost on me. And the thought of returning to the hell my life had been, well, that scared the crap out of me. I twisted in my chair to look up at my mom, Tina, hoping for some reassurance. She stood frozen, mixing bowl in hand. Her expression showed every bit as much fear as I felt. She and Bill had become my parents when Colonel Millett failed to come reclaim me. I'd arrived on this remote planet with some serious issues, and it had taken them years to win me over. Now, my nice, comfortable life with a mom and dad who loved me and I could love in return might be over. Where is she? Colonel Millett's demand resounded from the living room. Mom's tan face paled to sheet white. She glanced at the kitchen door and then back at me in panic. Twyla, stay here, she ordered in a hushed tone. She dropped the bowl on the counter with a clatter. Sauce splattered the happy yellow wall. Ignoring the mess, she rushed into the living room. I have no idea what you're talking about. Dad sounded pretty harsh for him. Who are you? Somehow I could sense he knew exactly who this guy was, and it terrified him. I know Twyla's here, Eben said. Despite small effort to hold me back, I entered the living room. Eben stood at the front door of our apartment, with my dad blocking his entrance. I moved forward towards them with faltering steps. Father? He'd changed. His black hair was now almost completely gray. Dark bags under his eyes. You came, I stammered. You finally came. Of course I did, he replied with a mix of anger and defensiveness. I thought you were dead. I replied with a mix of I replied, I thought you were dead. I was about to run to him, but he took a step back. A horrified expression contorted his once handsome face as he looked me over. A wave of revulsion hit me. It wasn't my emotion I was feeling. It was his. My empathic powers had returned. Suddenly I knew that he'd come for his little girl, but at 15, I now resembled my real mother so much that it recoiled at the sight of me. Memories of my life before coming to the Splendors flooded my mind, knocking me back to the day my parents split up. My father had been a brave and decorated officer in the Zartos regime, yet he'd crumbled under my mother's telepathic onslaught. As she ripped through his mind, I'd felt it. At 7, my own mental shields weren't strong enough to block the sensation of the stabbing penetration of her attack or my father's anguish. Once she'd finished, I'd gone to comfort him, as I had so many times. My mother, Cassie, wrenched me from his arms and hauled me out the door. I kicked and screamed, begging my father not to let her take me away. But he'd done nothing. My body trembled at the memory as Tina pulled me into her arms, breaking me free from the flashback. She rocked me side to side and whispered in my ear. My adopted mom's soft, sweet voice anchored me back to the present. I'm not sure which was worse, feeling how much my own father hated me, or realizing I was my mother's daughter. With all my empathic abilities back, was I destined to become a monster like her? Find out. Well done.
Very, very enticing first chapter. Very enticing first chapter. We have Philip Jock over here recording the whole thing for posterity. So I'm going to ask my couple of questions, and you guys are thinking, and then we're going to go out to the audience. So first, when and how, Rebecca, I know you're a fanatic of sci-fi, but when and how did you become a fan of science fiction? Recently?
No, I used to watch original Star Trek with my mom. And so Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, they were my friends. And Captain Kirk was my best imaginary friend and my first crush. So it went straight from Star Trek to Battlestar Galactica to Star Wars, and I have been in fandom my entire life.
It's good to have a good obsession. Yeah. If you're going to have an addiction, you might as well have a healthy one.
Yes.
Okay, so this is Women's History Month,
Yes.
and we just did International Day of the Woman, and yet science fiction is traditionally a man's world with male authors and male heroes, right? And if a woman wanted to write science fiction, she better disguise her name with a couple of initials, right? So yet your main character here is really kind of a girly girl, but very much a hero, and you are going by Rebecca. So what happened to make it mainstream?
So a few things have changed. When I first tried to get this book published, I got told I could not publish it under Rebecca, that I would have to use my initials because nobody would buy science fiction written by a woman. That's how long ago that I tried to get this published. And I will tell you, Hunger Games did a lot to break through that. Tamara Pierce did a lot to break through that. And it is something that now, and this is a good thing for writers to know, publishers are actually having a hard time finding books written with YA male protagonists, because so many female characters are out there. And that's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. The other thing that is kind of amazing how the field has changed. When I went to my first science fiction convention, and it was a few years ago, I was like the only woman under 60. And on the panels, they were almost entirely male. And there might be a token woman on a few of them, and most of them had to earn their bones for centuries. Okay, maybe that's a little much. Decades. And now when Chelsea and Josh come with me to convention, it's almost a 50-50 split now. So it has been pretty amazing. And I had the honor of being one of the featured female authors with a female protagonist in the International Women's Author Day. So
Times they are a-changin', ladies. Maybe we'll have a female president before we die.